Welcome back to my channel, sports fans. Okay, let's get into this one right here. I had a sub ask me to do a video about Luka Dončić and how he compares to the all-time great point guards. And I don't know if this guy was only the strong survive, but I saw a comment of his today, and he said, "What about Luka?" I was talking about Kobe in one of my videos, and he said, "What about Luka?" And I'm not sure if that was the same guy. Only the strong survive. That was his YouTube name. So let's just do the video request. I forget the guy's name who said it originally. It might have been this guy right here. Only the strong survive. But look, man, I'm gonna say this. I don't like doing comparisons to past eras, and it's hard to do comparisons to past eras, especially when they played in different shoes. They had different medicine. The rules were different. You had actual positional players. The big man, they ruled the NBA up until recently, really, because I keep trying to tell you what Michael Jordan did was rare in the 90s. It was rare to win more than one championship without a great big man. And that was the problem with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor back in the Lakers time. They didn't have a dominant big man. It was hard to win without a dominant big man. And so what Michael Jordan did in the 90s, and people don't really, realize what he was doing. And like I told you before, when he retired the first time, who was winning? The big man. Who was going to the finals? The big man. And you can even consider, I don't say they would have a dominant center on the Jazz, but still Karl Malone was a power forward, 6'9". He was the closest thing to a big man as far as dominant big man, and he was a big man to me. 6'9", that's taller than Pippen. That's taller than, Michael Jordan. I wouldn't say it was taller than Horace Grant, but yeah, when Jordan retired the first time, you had guys like Ewing going to the finals, Hakeem, Shaq. It was just dominated by big man. And then when Jordan retired again in the 90s, the big man took over again. The David Robinsons, the Tim Duncans, the Shaqs. I think Ewing went back to the finals. I think he was hurt. But you get my drift. And then it's still in the early 2000s. You had Shaq, you had Duncan, you had those type of guys. I don't mean to get too far off subject, but people don't appreciate what Michael Jordan did in the 90s. And the West just totally dominated in the 90s, besides 90, when Jordan was in there. They was the better team, and they was winning championships when Jordan left. So for Jordan to beat the West every time he was in the finals, people don't appreciate that, how strong that West really was. That West, if Jordan would have never been in that East, the West would have just kept railing off championships in the 90s. The East was great. Not that the East wasn't good in the 90s, but the West was just better, I think, in the 90s. And for Jordan to keep beating them 6-0, it just proves how great he really was. So, yeah, I don't like doing this stuff. I don't like comparing these guys. But I will. I'll talk about this. I like to do starting lineups. My all-time starting lineup, that will be Michael Jordan, Magic, Bird, Tim Duncan, and of course Wilt Chamberlain. These were, to me, the most dominant players at their positions. And a lot of people is going to be shocked because LeBron's not in there. He's not. He's not the most dominant. If I put Tim Duncan at power forward and I put Wilt at center, go get you a LeBron. He's not going to be able to come inside and do nothing. He's not going to be able to bull charge his way into the lane. I need a small forward like Larry Bird who can shoot from the outside. LeBron James' passing skills It's 7 assists per game. That's not dominant. To me, that's not even good. Uh, in double digits is upper echelon. So the 7 assists ain't nothing. And then we're talking about the rebounds? No way. Larry Bird averaged 10 rebounds a game. So he would be kind of useless to my starting lineup because he's not a good rebounder. 7 rebounds ain't good for a guy that's 6'9", 250 pounds. His defense, he's not a good defender. He's not a good shooter. He's not a good free throw shooter. So why would I put him as my small forward over Larry Bird? There's no way. he's not the competitor that Larry Bird is. So that would be my all-time starting lineup. Magic Johnson at point, Jordan at shooting guard, Larry Bird at small forward, Tim Duncan at power forward, and Wilt Chamberlain at center. There's just nobody could beat that. And these guys are at their peak prime. We're not talking about, later on in their prime. We're not talking about earlier when they first came in the league. We're talking about in their prime. You can bring whoever you want. They're not going to be able to beat them if we play real basketball. Even if we play a no-touch basketball, it would be worse. Because you got to remember, if these guys play in a no-touch era, their points go up even more than what they were in their careers when they played in a more physical game. And their assists will be more. A guy like Magic Johnson, their blocks will be, well, I wouldn't say blocks, but all those type of things, it would just be crazy. You couldn't touch Wilt Chamberlain. You couldn't touch Michael Jordan. You can't touch Larry Bird. Man, these guys will be going to the whole. They'll be shooting probably like 20 points a game just at the line. That's what you guys don't understand. You guys think that, if they played in this era, this and that. No, their points will go up per game. They had a battle to get their points. And you're trying to tell me now they don't have to play any defense? So they will be saving their bodies and more energy playing in this era. So Luka Dončić, what do I think about him? I think that he's a great player in this era. I think he's going to shatter the LeBron mold of the NBA that LeBron created. Yes, this is the NBA that LeBron created. Just get a stat line. You don't have to win too many statistical titles, which means you don't have to be the best in the league. Overall, in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, that's not how they played back in the day. For you to be the best in the league in a statistical category, you had to win that title to be considered the best at that position for the year. And if you did it a lot, you would just be considered the best at that position, period. You got, Jordan, all those scoring titles, he's considered the greatest scorers of all time, and, etc. But Luka Dončić is going to shatter this mold that LeBron set in the coming years. I think in about 5 years, he's going to be the new white LeBron James. And like I said in the past, we don't want to hear nothing about how soft the NBA is because this is the NBA that they made for LeBron so he could keep playing for 21 seasons. Okay? You can't play for 21 seasons in the 90s, in the 80s. Maybe. It will be hard. But you won't be having this type of success as far as the stat line. So they made this no-touch era for LeBron James initially in 2005 so he could make the playoffs, so he could start charging the lane because he doesn't have a jump shot. And then he didn't want to develop no positional skills in the paint. So they just made it, they had to accommodate him so he could just start charging the lane as he start lifting weights and getting bigger, and everybody in the league start getting smaller. And like I told you guys in the past, LeBron James has a 90s body when these guys were lifting weights and getting big and stuff like that. So he wouldn't be able to charge the lane like he does in this era or since he's been in the league. He won't be able to do that because it would be a power forward and it would be a great center to meet him. And they won't play that ticky-tack stuff. Okay? He would get knocked on his butt. They would make him earn his points and put him at the line where he would shoot a brick fest. And he would ultimately have to develop a mid-range game. That's what would happen. He would have to develop a mid-range game. In the least, as a star player, he would have to shoot about at least 78% from the line. Right? He would have to shoot something like that. Karl Malone wasn't always a good free throw shooter, but I can tell you what, he had a fall away mid-range. He could work the block. He could even face up and shoot that jumper. He played pretty good defense, especially in the second half of his career. Um, Stuff like that, man. He would have to just change his game because you just couldn't bull charge the lane like that. Because somebody you go and you bull charge the lane with an elbow and a stiff arm in somebody's face, forehead, chest, stomach, they would swing on you. They would swing on you. They won't just let him do that. And the rest would be calling offensive foul on this guy for extending that arm. Another thing in this era that I don't like, how they changed the defensive rules to where the guys can't hand check and put elbows in the back and stuff like that as a defender, but the offensive guy can do what a defender used to do, the stiff arms and all that stuff, and the pushaways, all that stuff. So a defender in this era is defenseless, all just to make it look like these guys are better offensive players. Now, this is what I would say about Luka first, before I start comparing him, which I don't like to do, to other point guards. Yes, he can get on a hot streak, but at times his shot selection is horrible. Horrible. It's just horrible at the 3-point line. I don't mind what he does when he works his way into the paint and, pump fakes and does those fadeaways and stuff. I can respect that. But his shot selection from three sometimes is just horrible. And like I told people in the past, I don't believe these are real coaches. I just don't. For one, today, these aren't real coaches. By the title, yes, they're real coaches. But when we look at history of real coaches who use the chalkboard, use a board, period, in the game to draw up plays and different stuff like that, and ran certain offense and sets, and is this a triangle? Is this the Princeton? What kind of offense is this? So what we see today is four guys sitting at the 3-point line and one guy in the middle. What offense is that? So if everybody in the league is running that same offense, what are you coaching? You're just another coach coaching the same NBA offense. That would be an NBA offense. That's not the coach's select offense of that team, right? So defense, what would the defense be if four offensive guys are sitting at the 3-point line and one guy, which would be the center, inside? What would that be considered? That would be the same defense every team, because it's four defenders guarding four 3-point guys at the 3-point line. in the defender guarding the center that's in the middle. So it becomes like a gimmick game. It's not the basketball that was played for years. And you're only going to come to a channel like this that keeps it real and tells you different than what the media is telling you about Curry changed the game. Told you again, Curry did not change the game. It was Curry and Clay who started this 3-point shooting thing. Both of them was shooting 40 plus from the three. If Clay never shows up, maybe Curry never wins the championship. And you got to believe maybe Durant never comes over there. And I'm not trying to say Curry would be a bad player, but they called them the Splash Brothers. Yes, Clay has overall skill, or Curry has a better overall skill level than Clay. Yes, but both of them shot 40+% from the three, which is wicked. That's unheard of. But when we look at the overall 2010s of Curry and Clay in the Golden State Warriors, it wasn't four guys sitting at the 3-point line bombing away threes. You didn't have your power forward, your small forward, and both of your guards sitting at the 3-point line. Go watch it. Go watch it. That didn't occur until recently, until the 2000s. So Curry did not change the game. And the 3-point shooting was because of Curry and Clay. It was just them sitting at the perimeter. So if you came for Clay, you had to come for Curry, because Clay would pass it to Curry and Curry would pass it to Clay. So you was getting burnt. They really didn't have a great big man. Okay, so they did not change the game. If we want to be real, who really spread out the floor like that, it was LeBron James, right? You took Kevin Love and you put him on the perimeter. He was a 20, 25, and 10 guy. He was a center up in Minnesota. You took Bosh. He was same thing, 25 and 10 guy. He played under the rim. You stretched him out. So that's what LeBron started doing. He starts stretching all his guys out to the perimeter, except for his center, so he could drive the lane. He's the one that opened up the game like that. And he probably saw that once he went to the Olympics and he played, in the FIBA and stuff like that. He probably started seeing that if he gets his teams to do that, he could just drive to the basket, uncontested. So it wasn't Curry and Clay, and it was nothing close to it. And when we get back to Luka right here, looks like he's having some growing pains, but he's going to be a great player in his own era. Could he do what he's doing in the 90s? I don't think so. Those guys were way more athletic, man. They would be picking his pocket all over the place. And that's hard for me to say because this guy has great handles. He can dribble the ball with both hands. But those guys in the 90s, you better be dribbling that thing tight like that. And you just couldn't walk down the lane like he does and just get off shots like that. A lot of people, if you want to watch Michael Jordan play, go watch his games. Stop watching highlights. It's incredible. Yes, his highlights are incredible. But Michael Jordan wasn't just walking down the lane, getting buckets like that, bro. A lot of his, him coming down the lane, you got to remember, he's 6'6", especially in the 90s. He had to pump fake and do all this stuff, elude the defender just to get these shots off. You think just because you see some highlights of a play here, when you watch a highlights, that's just maybe like one or two plays a game out of hundreds of games this guy played, or thousands of shots he took. It wasn't that easy. I'm trying to tell you, he wasn't just coming down the lane and getting off like that on guys that were quick off their feet to block you, centers, power forwards, guards, small forwards, and stuff like that. So that's why I think that Luka would have a hard time just walking down the lane and getting these shots off like that. If I put him in the 90s, his rebounds, as a guy who can't jump, and what is he, about 6'7", Bird, he was about, what was he, like 6'9", 6'10", something like that. He was taller than Luka, and he averaged 10. I think he might have been bigger than Luka. You have people like Charles Barkley, maybe 6'4", but he doesn't have the springs and the quickness that Charles Barkley had to get off this guy, wow. He's one of the fastest guys I've seen hit the floor and get back up. Not hit the floor on his stomach. I'm talking about from hitting the ground on his feet and then getting back up to the boards, or just getting up to the boards. Period. It's incredible. What they call an amount of rebounds or something like that. So just an incredible rebounder for his height, going against trees and stuff like that. Luka, you got to remember, most of his rebounds come from there's nobody in the lane. There's nobody in the lane. There's nobody in the lane. When that ball gets thrown up, I would say more in the playoffs, yes. But in the regular season, these guys just lag off, a shot's taken, and they just take off. All the guys at the three-point line, which is 4 of them, they just take off and go to the other end. Most of the time, the offensive center, he's boxed out, so he can't get nothing so the rebounds are easier, which to me, LeBron should be averaging now for the past few years, 10 rebounds a game, easily, no doubt, 10 rebounds a game. But he's too lazy. You see the most of the rebounds he gets is like flat-footed. So as long as he gets his 7, he's good for that game. He's there filling up a stat sheet. That's it. So he wouldn't average that. I would say he would. Wow, Michael Jordan was pretty athletic, and he averaged 6 rebounds a game. I don't see him getting more rebounds than Michael Jordan. I just don't see it. He will be lucky if he would get 4 rebounds a game. I'm being serious. He'd be lucky to get 4 rebounds a game in the 90s. And that's why, we try to tell you guys, these stats that these guys are getting, they're inflated. Not only you get more possessions a game, but because of the defense, because everybody's out at the three-point line, everything's inflated. So this is why I don't like to compare eras. To me, the guys in this era, their stats go down in the 80s and 90s. And the guys in the 80s and 90s, the great guys, their stats go up. Their stats go up. And that's with not even being good three-point shooters. That's what you guys don't understand. They always try to use this, they couldn't shoot they wouldn't have to shoot the 3. If a guy could give you 25 let's just say the average superstar, 24 to 30 points a game. We'll come down. We'll just say 20 points, your average superstar. It depends on the position, who it was. Let's say 20 points to 30 points a game in the 90s. That's what your average superstar got you. And that was based on better defensive rules. That was without really shooting a lot of threes. So what would those same guys average in this era without not even caring about a three, without the defense? You would have to tack on 5 to 10 more points on their stat sheet or on their averages. That's what you would have to do. The 3-point shot, to me, you're shooting 30 a game, is a cop out from learning how to do other positional skills. Shoot the mid range consistently. Have post games and stuff like that. Executing on real pick and rolls to the basket. They do it sometimes in this era, the pick and roll to the basket, but it was more prevalent then. And another thing in the 90s, it just, if they try to do that, how they play today, it wouldn't work back in the 90s. Not because they weren't good 3-point shooters, it's just that they could hold their own. And when I say that, look how the game is played for the most part. Be 4 guys at the 3-point line. The guy with the ball will start to drive the ball, and the guy that's defending him, you would think he's good. Just defend him. But another 3-point guy will come off of his guy to help the guy that's driving. Now a 3-point guy is left open. Now the guy that's driving, he said, what am I going to do? Am I going to keep driving or throw it to that 3-point guy? So if he throws it to the 3-point guy, now he's open. Now another 3-point defender has to come off of him. And now the 3-point guy is saying, should I shoot this or should I pass it to the 3-point guy that's open, my teammate? So it just keeps going on and on. In the 90s, that wouldn't work because these guys would never come off the 3-point guy to help the guy that's driving, because the guy that's already on, the guy that's driving, he could hold his own. That's why that wouldn't work in the 90s. You couldn't spread the floor out. It would be useless. And the game would be dying just like it is now. So Luka is going to go down as an all-time great. Unless some crazy injury happens, he's probably going to take this L right now and, learn from it. You got to remember, Akeem Olajuwon lost his first finals. Shaq lost his first finals. So these guys ultimately became great all-time players. But I just can't compare this guy to other great point guards. I'm just telling you, if I threw him in the 90s, it wouldn't work out. It's a different style of play. He's never seen no defense like that. Imagine what he's unseen against Boston. That will be on a nightly basis. It would be on a nightly basis. It would be hardcore. Maybe he could adjust and play a different game. I don't know. But to me, he's going to go down as an all-time great. Look at the stats he's putting up in this era. He's going to be an all-time great. He's going to be a top 10 player of all time. He needs to get a great big man. I don't think it's going to work out with Kyrie unless they get a big man and they work with him all together. So we'll see what happens. But this guy, who's going to stop him? The rules are going to continue to be the same. So he's probably going to go down as maybe top 15. It depends on how many championships, MVPs he wins. But just alone that stat line he's going to have is it's going to shatter what LeBron does. But tell me what you think.